How do we equip our families with a biblical worldview? How do we prepare the next generation for life? How do I grow in my walk with the Lord and in my marriage? If you wrestle with these questions, you are in the right place to find answers. Welcome to the Entrusting the Faith podcast. All right, well, I am excited to have Mark Hancock with us on the Entrusting the Faith podcast today. Mark is CEO of Trail Life USA. He is an author. He is a conference speaker. He's been a pastor and counselor, ministry director. He is a husband and a father, and most importantly, a Christ follower. So we're excited to have Mark on the show today.
Thanks, Eric. It's great to be here today.
Oh, it is our pleasure. Now, for those who are unfamiliar with Trail Life USA, can you tell us about it? What is it and who's it for?
Sure. Trail Life USA is a Christ-centered, boy-focused adventure character and leadership organization. We're organized in troops in over 850 churches in all 50 states. We have about 30,000 members across the country. So boys from kindergarten through 12th grade. Quick answer, boys are organized in troops. So they're doing things like camping and hiking, spending time outdoors. We have a robust awards program, everything you would expect in a troop kind of environment, handbooks, uniforms. Our highest award is called the Freedom Award. Been around about 7 years, and our roots are sort of in about 7 years ago. The Boy Scouts began to go through some changes, and it was clear that churches were going to have a difficult time chartering Boy Scout troops because of the religious freedom issues that would come along with the changes at the Boy Scouts. So about 300 volunteers across the country got together and started talking about the idea of a specifically Christian organization for boys that offered character leadership and adventure opportunities. And out of that was birthed Trail Life USA. In 2014, we launched with 10,000 members on our first day.
Wow, 10,000 on day one. That's significant.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we really struck a nerve, with parents who were saying that they liked the traditional values, and they liked the idea of some of the things that we hold to be true, like boys and girls are different. We just believe that that's true, that God created boys and girls with their own unique strengths and abilities, and we think that they need and they benefit from a program that's designed specifically for them, and that rings true with a lot of families across the country. So we've seen some really rapid growth.
Wow, that's exciting. Now, on the surface, it seems a little bit like Trail Life USA is a lot like the Boy Scouts of America. What would you say to a family of faith that was, trying to choose between the two?
Well, that's a great question. I was actually asked that recently. I had a woman come up to a booth at a convention. She said, I have a Boy Scout troop 5 minutes away, and I've got a Trail Life troop 30 minutes away. So can convince me that I should join Trail Life. And I said, well, although there are a lot of things that are similarities when you say, okay, you're in troops and you're camping, you're hiking, it's outdoors and awards and handbooks and all that great character leadership opportunities that comes along with the outdoors, they look very similar. But there are two things that are very specific to Trail Life that we are committed to. In fact, if we left these things, we would have no reason to exist. We are Christ-centered and we are boy-focused. Now, if those things aren't important to you, then you have to make a choice, and maybe a more convenient option will work for you. But if they are important to you, if you care about putting your son in an environment that allows that, where he's surrounded by Christian men, Christian mentors, men who sign a statement of faith, child safety, youth protection trained, criminal background check, good, solid, godly men. If you want your son in that environment, then you really don't have a choice. And if you want your son in an environment that says that boys and girls are different, you can't take a program and just say, okay, we're just going to add girls to it, and it doesn't require any change. And we just think that that's counterintuitive. I mean, any engaged parent or teacher knows that boys and girls are different. They learn differently, they behave differently, they develop differently. There's so many things that are different about boys and girls. And so if those sorts of things are important to you, if you want your son in a Christ-centered, boy-focused environment, then there is no choice. So on first blush, you may say, they kind of look the same, but if that's important to you, there's really no choice.
Oh, that makes sense. And that's a very good sort of that demarcation point between the two. And so I know the people in our audience, that's very helpful for them as they're looking ahead and for options for their boys.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, I was asked that question. It was at a homeschool convention, and the mother who asked me that question about her sons, I said, "Well, you already make difficult choices. So, if you had a public school 5 minutes away, and you had to drive your boys to your homeschool that was 30 minutes away, what would you do? Which choice would you make?" She says, "It takes me a lot more than 30 minutes to do what it is I'm doing for my kids." And I said, "Yeah, you've already made those sorts of choices. And that's the kind of parent you are. I'm sorry, ma'am, there is no choice for you."
Oh, that's beautiful, but it also really kind of puts it in perspective. I totally get that. I'm a homeschool dad. We've got 3 kids that I'm going to say my wife homeschools, and I'm an assistant.
I get it.
And so I get that it's making the hard decisions, but hard decisions are not bad. It's just sometimes they're hard, but sometimes a lot of times they're really the best decisions, that we can make.
Yeah. And engaged parents who care about the next generation, they make those hard decisions all the time, whether it's you're going to eat ice cream all the time or whether you're going to throw some vegetables in there. We make decisions that are hard because we care about our kids. And so that's why Trail Life has really filled a void.
It's almost like they're really beginning with the end in mind. They're like, here's the result I want. And therefore I'm going to make the choices today so that at the end of the line, the results are there.
Yeah, absolutely. And we haven't run into anyone who has regretted choosing a Christ-centered, boy-focused program for their sons.
Well, that's encouraging too. Sometimes people worry about, am I missing out? Am I doing this? But I'm kind of the same way. And when you put Christ at the center and you're chasing hard after him, I can't say I've ever had a regret.
Yeah. Well, we have enough complications in our life, and certainly living in this culture today, it's nice that here's a clear choice. Here's an organization that's growing boys. And Eric, one of the mysteries of our program is that we're also a ministry to men, and we don't promote it that way. But I got to tell you what, the dads and the dad likes. We have a lot of men in our program who don't have sons in the program, but they understand the value of mentoring the next generation. So we have dads and dad likes. And when the boys go in the tents at night and the dads sit around those campfires and talk about maybe what's going on in their own life, or maybe what was struggling with at work, or maybe one dad will say to another dad, "Hey, I saw the way that you connected with your son. How did you build that relationship with him?" I mean, it is a ministry to men also. And we have men over and over again who say, I found my tribe. I found other men who care about the things that I care about. We had a man who did a number of tours in Afghanistan, and he showed up here at we have a 127-acre campus in South Carolina where a lot of our troops come to camp. And he was here, didn't have a son in the program, but he was here mentoring boys. And he said, I got to tell you, he says, when I came back from Afghanistan, I thought, I'm never going to find another connection like it is that I had over there. And I've never been to war, but here's a guy who spent a lot of time over there. He says, I've been alone for so long because I thought I'm never going to have those types of connections. He says, but I have found my brothers in Trail Life. And he was just so thankful for the opportunity. He's got these guys who are interested in the outdoors, interested in valuable things, having deep, important conversations. When you have those sorts of experiences, it changes your perspective of everything. I can only guess. But, he was so thankful to have this tribe, this band of brothers that he discovered. And it took some time. They reached out to him and said, "Hey, listen, will you come help with our troop? Will you come help?" And they had to ask him a number of times. And finally he went, and he's all in now.
Wow.
And that beautiful?
That is, and that's something I didn't even, realize, but, as we're talking, that community aspect, not only for the boys and the troops, but also for the leaders, really, it does provide that community that I think so often we, as guys, we don't gravitate towards that naturally, whether that's in the churches or elsewhere. That's just not something, or let's say I'll at least claim me, I don't gravitate toward it naturally.
Well, it's fascinating because one of my careers, I think you mentioned, I was a mental health counselor, marriage and family therapist for a number of years, and always struggle with men in order to get them to open up. And we went through that time in the 80s and everything was about accountability. You need to be an accountability group. You need to have an accountability partner. You need to go have coffee once a week with this guy. And that was great. But I'll tell you what, guys face to face don't do really well at vulnerability. That's not where we do it. We do it side by side, working on something.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you take men and you take them and they're all sitting around staring at a fire, they'll open up. That face-to-face connection. I mean, it works for women. Women are designed for that intense eye contact and those intense emotional connections. Guys kind of need something else going on. Men would rather work on a car together and talk, or sit around a fire, or be on a hike, or be up in the mountains or something, or fishing. They would rather be connecting in that way and having a side-by-side conversation than face-to-face. And so Trail Life puts men in the outdoors and these things where they're looking at the same thing, but they're able to share their heart or open up in a way that they wouldn't do if you're sitting in front of some kind of sterile coffee shop or something.
That's beautiful. And I agree. I know the times where I have been most connected with other guys, we're doing something, there's some action involved. It could be just sitting around the campfire. I think of just times I've had with different guys in my life, uncles and dad, and those times where we're working on something, we're building something, we're tearing something down. It is that connection through activity. So like Trail Life USA provides a great avenue for both boys and men to do that.
Yeah, we really do. And it was kind of like I said, it was a surprise to us, the number of testimonies that we get from the field with people saying, or wives saying, my husband is a different man because he's invested himself in Trail Life. He comes home, he feels listened to, he feels like he's got friends, he feels like he has someone to share things with. And so yeah, that's kind of one of the best kept secrets of Trail Life, as much as our focus is on boys, because boys definitely need a hand up in this generation. But the ministry to men is powerful.
So, and that kind of leads this next question is, what do you see as the biggest challenge that boys face today?
Oh my gosh, I don't even know where to start there. We think about boys as kind of canaries in the coal mine of our culture. That reference in the olden days, they would take a canary into the coal mine. If the canary stopped singing, then they knew there were noxious fumes in there. If it died, they knew they needed to get out right away. Well, boys have stopped singing in our culture. They're now twice as likely to be special education, 3 times more likely to be ADHD, to be diagnosed ADHD. Their suicide rates, their drug abuse rates, just soaring. The boys are being mowed down in this culture because we've forgotten how valuable they are. Now, it's popular in our culture to talk about how wonderful girls are, and they really are. But we see over and over again that message that says girls are strong, girls can do anything. You're beautiful, you're bold, you can do anything. You can do everything that a boy can do. But you don't see, we're not giving that message to boys right now. We're not talking about how strong they can be. We're not talking about how determined they can be. We're not talking about how focused they can be when they really have a purpose or a mission in mind. We've kind of painted them all with this toxic masculine brush, and it's like boyhood is some sort of social disease that needs to be eradicated or something. And boys are feeling those effects. There's now more girls receiving bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, doctoral degrees, and boys, total flip from 40 years ago. And they're projecting a time where there will no longer be men enrolled in college. That's how drastic that change is, because they're being raised in an environment, in a school environment that they don't fit in. Boys and girls are different. They need to move. They need activity, and they need to be outdoors. They need to talk. They need to interact. They need to feel like there's some risk and competition involved. And we removed all those things from the classroom. There's no longer any tag or those sorts of things because they're just too competitive, and everybody gets a trophy. Well, that takes the magic out for boys. So we put them in this situation where they're not allowed to win anymore, but boys are motivated by winning, by risk and competition. You got two boys who come up to you 6, 7 years old, and they say, "Hey, can we go to the water fountain?" When you say go, you have fired the starter's pistol. I mean, they are going. Boys confront everything as a competition, but we've taken all that competition away, and we've driven them indoors to video games where they can compete, where it's really clear. If I get this many points, I get this reward. I can move up to this level. I can do this. I can do that. And I'm better than that person. And it's okay in that environment. So we put them in an environment. We offer them an environment where they get to take risks and they get to compete and they thrive there. But then we criticize them for playing so many video games. So they really can't win. If we can, and that's why in Trail Life USA, we understand that risk and competition. We understand that a boy gets engaged when he has a challenge before him. And I think if we fail this generation, it won't because we over challenge them, but because we under challenge them. And boys need good challenge in a safe environment with adults who are accounting for the risk and keeping it okay, but giving boys a chance to move and to be fully boys. And I really believe that's making a difference. But boys are paying a price right now for the way that we're approaching them. It started a generation or so ago, and we started seeing all the dads on TV became buffoons. And we talked about that a lot. Gosh, there's no good role models. We've taken all the good role models away. And so who boys see in the news a lot are men who are failing, even in the church, in sports and everywhere. It's just failing men. And that is the canaries dying. That is the boys and the men trying to find their place in a culture that doesn't recognize the value of those strengths that they really bring. If you look closely enough at our society, in our successes, it was winning and focused men for the most part who helped us to develop and succeed as a society, whether it's world wars or whatever, and women standing behind them. And now, as much as we love women, their strengths, need to be drawn attention to also. But we've taken the ability to men away from men to be strong and bold because it comes across as being toxic or aggressive or overly assertive, when it isn't that at all. It's God's design in any pairing for one person to be that front person and the other one to be the nurturing, supportive person. And so it's making it difficult for boys. They don't know where they fit anymore.
That is true. I can see that as I look around, as I interact with children in our church, with teens, how can we help them fit in? They're trying to fit in. And like you say, they're doing it in ways that are not healthy, that are not Christ honoring. And so it's difficult. So as a dad with a son, so I have 3 kids, 2 daughters and a son. What would you say is one thing that would be most important for me to do, or for any dad who's listening in who has boys, one thing in order to equip him to take on biblical manhood, to take that, to keep that next right step in that direction?
Man, what a great question. We could talk all day about that. I will make reference to a book that we have that you can download free on our website right now called Let Boys Be Boys. And it's 3 winning strategies for leaders of boys, including what fathers can do for their sons. So we'll answer that more completely in there, but let me give you one. We need to communicate better with boys. With a younger boy, we need to get down to his level. It has to be eye to eye, focused attention, and physical touch. And that means we get down on one knee for these little guys. We meet them eye to eye. We put our hand on his shoulder and we talk to him about who it is that God has made him. Shocking changes in a boy when somebody drops down to his physical level and meets him eye to eye and talks to him, because we've got phones in front of our faces, phones in our ears, we've got everything else going on. And these kids, all they know, particularly those younger ones, is how to reach up and pull on mom's sweater. Mom. I mean, they just want somebody to come down into their world. So we've got to drop down there physically into their world, give them eye to eye contact, physical touch, and focused attention where they are the most important person in the world. And we got to put our phones and all our stuff aside and meet them there. For older boys, the middle grade level, we need to listen to them more than we talk. They're really not interested in what you have to say until you've heard what they have to say. So we've got to take the time to listen to them. They're developing their own ideas. They're beginning to think about things, and they just need to be heard in a judgment-free environment. Now, you don't want them to get hurt. You don't want to say dumb things, but at the same time, you've got to give them that respect of hearing what it is that they have to say. And then when you get into high school, you got boys who are starting to dabble in wisdom. They're starting to come up with their own ideas of things, and you've got to listen to them too. And we can't cut their legs out from under them. We think that we can carry heavy things to a boy, but you can't if you don't have a strong bridge. And social media has taught us that it's given everybody a bullhorn and an opinion, and we just yell at each other, and we don't make any progress there because we haven't built any bridge. So even though we're speaking what we believe to be truth, that bridge cannot hold that weight. And so we're breaking bridges all over the place. And we can do that in relationships, particularly with high school boys, if we're not working on that relationship, building a strong bridge so that we can bring those difficult things across, because they are beginning to dabble in their own ideas and they can get off the mark. But just because it's truth, unfortunately, the truth isn't enough. if the bridge hasn't been built. The truth will break that relationship, like we see in social media all the time. People who don't know each other feel like they have the right to say something because it's true. It doesn't help. The bridge won't hold that truth. So we've got to have relationships with those boys, which takes time. We have to spend time with those boys. For the younger guys, we drop down to the level, eyeball to eyeball, physical touch, focused attention. Middle grade boys, we have to listen more than we talk. High school boys, we have to build a relationship bridge that lets us carry heavy things back and forth.
Wow, that's beautiful. The book you mentioned, I'll make sure that link is in the show notes, so everybody can have access to it. But those are beautiful things, and I appreciate that. That's something, because my son, he's 10, and so he's in that getting ready, fourth grade, 10 years old, getting ready to turn 11, and so it's sort of that navigation of how do I build those connections, see that development. And I've seen that change over the last 2 or 3 years as you're talking about. So it's really good to see where that's going and what I need to do.
Yeah. And he's in a household with two sisters. So he needs that attention from dad. And it's interesting you're talking about him navigating, because at his age, we call that program level our navigators, because that's exactly what they're doing is they're trying to figure, like from 10, 11 up until about 14, those are our navigators. They're trying to figure their way through this really tough time. But the book, Let Boys Be Boys, at the website is a great resource for figuring these things out. And it's free.
Awesome. Oh, excellent. Well, I will make sure I get a copy, and I'll make sure the link is in the show notes so everyone else can. Got to wrap this up, as much as I'd love to just talk for a much longer time. For anybody who wants to know about Trail Life USA, wants to know more about you and the work you guys are doing, where would you like them to go?
TrailLifeUSA.com. TrailLifeUSA.com has 2 L's in the middle. It's 2 words, TrailLifeUSA.com. And if they're looking for a troop in the area, there's a tab there that says Get Connected. And there's a map of the United States. And if you put in your zip code, it'll show you all the troops that are nearby. You can click on that and give that troop your information and see if you can be a part. If there's not a troop in your area, then you can start a troop. And it takes about 5 adults and a church that can manage this vision and that wants to see boys' lives changed to start a troop. And like I said, we've got 850 of them across the country.
Wow. And that is encouraging to hear not only how it started, but the growth therein and just the work that you guys are doing. I'm thrilled to hear that work is going on. So I just want to thank you for joining me today, for taking time out of your afternoon to have a conversation. So thank you so much. I know our listeners really appreciate this too.
Eric, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for having me on.
I was so very excited to have Mark Hancock on the podcast. Just a great conversation. Several things that jumped out at me were just partly what is Trail Life, and the 2 things that Trail Life is committed to, that it is being Christ-centered and being boy-focused. One of the sort of the hidden benefits behind Trail Life, or that they have found, is that it's not only a ministry to boys, but a ministry to men also, allowing dads and other volunteers to connect and encourage each other. The third thing that really jumped out at me was just the different ways for dads to communicate with their sons. Communication is critical. For younger boys, just getting down on their level, eye to eye, focused attention, put a hand on their shoulder, and just speak with them, telling them about how God has made them, encouraging them. For older boys, like he said, in the middle grade level, listening to them more than we talk. And for high school boys, really building that relationship bridge, spending time listening to them too, because just because we share truth with them does not mean they will accept it, that the relationship must be there. So great conversation with Mark. Would encourage you to check out Trail Life USA and check out the show notes for all of the details. If you found this episode helpful, please leave a review for us wherever you listen to podcasts. Doing so will help others to find us. Check out the show notes for resource information. We encourage you to do that for links and other references. We'd like to hear from you, so you can message us your questions or comments on Facebook, Instagram, at Entrusting the Faith. You can email us at info@entrustingthefaith.com. If you go to our website, which is www.entrustingthefaith.com, you can sign up to our email list to receive free resources as well as upcoming podcast episode information. So check it out. Lastly, just remember, legacies are built a day at a time. So start now.